Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our podcast series on the category of Ancient Wisdom Demystified. Today's topic is the evolution of God, period 2, the age of the shamans, from 40,000 years ago to 12,000 years ago. So, Tata, who were the shamans?
Yeah, the shamans actually is a name given to a person who becomes the link or the interceder on behalf of a tribe to the higher powers or the supernatural powers. So
Hmm.
this group, which had so far in their evolution to a stage of Homo sapiens, they were hunter gatherers and then evolving into the agrarian age. Now, the period 40,000 to 12,000 before today is actually the late hunter gatherers and the early agrarian era. So,
Hmm.
so far, man was having a perception of God on a one to one basis. He had no group representation because he thought, as we were discussing before, that man was one with nature, so also he should be one with the higher nature. You remember we talked about how the tribe in Oregon, they had five different types of
Yeah.
concept of God. So they were all one is to one. That is, one person communicates in whatever mode he wants to directly the higher powers. But a shaman is a person who can actually communicate to higher power directly on behalf of a group. He had that special power, and
Okay.
you can say that this is something like like stockbrokers. Robert Wright, who is a very famous author and who wrote a book called The Evolution of God, he says, today's world, stockbrokers are people supposed to be experts in predicting the share value and where to make your investment. But
Hmm.
if you really make an analysis, what you find is that you will find that the stockbrokers are maybe about 50 to 60% of the time they are right regarding the stock movement. So, but if you on your own, if you're in the stock market for a longer period of time and you try to, play the market, you would also be fairly successful. In one case, you don't have to pay the commission. In the other case, you pay a huge commission. So the shaman was like the stockbroker. And shaman
Hmm.
is in the language of the Tungu tribe of Siberia, means one who knows. He's the one who knows. So Stone Age shaman was the origin of mysticism, actually. If you look at the concept of the shamanism, um, Eskimo shamanism and Buddhist mysticism are very similar. They share the same goal, deliverance from the illusion of the flesh. Because they said all diseases come to you only because there is actually something wrong with your connection to the spirit through your flesh. The will to transcend the profane individual condition in order to recover your very soul of spiritual existence, which is at once broken life, is what was the basic message which the shamans were trying to deliver. Yeah, that's basically this. I mean, the description of the shaman.
Okay. So, what was with the sudden popularity and what was their function?
Yeah, the popularity, as I told you, because as the number of people in the tribe grew bigger, and there were social conditions, there were personal health conditions which are there, and they needed to find somewhere somebody who has got the authority to appeal to the higher powers.
Hmm.
So this was, as I told you, the late hunter-gatherer and early agrarian societies. The fundamental function of the shaman is the struggle against the power of evil. He thought every disease, everything that happens to a tribe which is not in line with their true evolutionary purpose and their survival is because there was the power of evil which is overriding it. So the shaman represents the crucial step in the emergence of organized religion. You see that the shaman is basically one who was a stepping stone to the organized religion. Yeah. You can equate them to the current spiritual heads. For example, you have evangelistic movements nowadays. people who represent the higher power, and they are people who say that they can bring in the healing power from God. And what is
Mm.
difference from that and this is not much different. The shaman and the evangelist are practically the same. What they do is their sacred knowledge is not something which is out of the ordinary. They use their power of hypnotism, the mass hypnosis, to make sure that you are able to connect people directly to something which they are basically already within themselves. And what they need is to only go into a state of hypnosis to find out their own healing. This is basically the function of the shaman. So that is basically, I think, answers your question.
Yeah. So how did they convince the early man of their powers?
Their power was mainly directed towards healing, as I told you.
Yeah.
They were trying to be the main so-called the doctors, physical and spiritual doctors of the tribe. And what they did was basically is to wear masks and do a dance. You can see that they were using totally a transformation of their own physical, personal appearance through wearing masks. And sometimes when the disease is very severe, you find that the shaman used to wear a number of masks which he could change during the dance. So and he used to dance for a long period of time.
Hmm.
So this is how he was trying to, communicate to the people. And he will be fasting during their pre-healing period. They were also using hallucinogenic agents. And these are the things which made them to appear to have the power. But what was he doing? He was basically invoking their own, posture and appearance to make sure that the people who are getting healed, the target audience, are able to connect up to a higher spirit.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
So how are these shamans identified in like a tribe or a group?
Yeah, in a tribe or a group, the shamans were mostly self-proclaimed. They could predict certain natural phenomena such as eclipse. And for many people who don't know how the eclipse happened, they suddenly thought these people could see the future.
Hmm.
So that's how you start establishing. And also they were demonstrating the power of curing came from the association with certain spirits. And they would sleep with the corpse to obtain the power of the departing spirit. And these are things which they employed to make sure that people get convinced of their power. Yeah.
Was there a succession to this shaman?
Yes, young men who wanted to be shaman had to go through a very rigorous initiation period, self-inflicting pain, fasting, and long period of abstinence from sex. All this was part of preparation for a man to become a shaman.
Were the shamans always successful in their function?
No, they were partly successful because ultimately they are just human beings trying to pose that they have the power.
Yeah.
But if they failed, they would blame a member of the tribe who was who will be sacrificed. Also, they use deceptions such as sleight of hand, like what you do in magic, removing a hidden element
Hmm.
from the deceased person and displaying it. It happens even today in all these spiritual masters who do all type of gimmicks and produce something which they say, here I have removed the thing that was a cause for your disease out of your body. So these are all things that were used by these people to make sure that they were convincing the public. Also, one more thing which is very common those days and which is common today also, he used spies to gather information in the group.
Hmm.
In You must have seen some of the movies like Trance, which is a Malayalam movie, and also called movies in which you find the evangelists how they do their miracles, and they go and have the spies who go around the gathering and trying to gather information about people and transmit it over wireless to a remote,
Hmm.
you know, earbud, so that they could hear what the person is now telling to the spy, and spy conveys it to the preacher. Same as the shamans used to use their spies in a limited way as a personal contact and try to, convince people that they are now actually predicting something. They're actually prophesying something. So this is what was happening. Yeah.
So, Tata, was it a rewarding function being a shaman?
Yeah, most of the time when they were successful, they were paid in barter mode. Some, that time there was no money. So they used to pay them maybe, bushel of wheat or a special animal skin or something. So that was the mode of payment. Also, if you are, for example, if the chief of the tribe fell sick severely and he was healed, he would also grant sexual favors to the shaman. He would share his wife or daughter with the shaman for a period of time. So this was all quite common practice in the tribal community. Yeah.
So, Tata, what is the link between the shamans and our modern concept of religion?
Yeah, this is an important step, as I told you, in man's consciousness. Man transcended in his consciousness from purely individual perception of the supernatural to a collective organized authority as a medium of perception. That was the shaman. Now, this was no different from the religious heads we have got. All the bishops and the Swamijis and all these people who are people who are connecting up. They are the special powers that connect up. We believe that they have the special power, and by their pure life, they could attain that power. But this was actually a perception which was created right from the time when man transcended from his archaic consciousness to the magical consciousness, and then finally moved into what we call as a mythical consciousness, about which we'll see in the future episodes. Yeah.
Okay. So, what is the next stage of the evolution of God in the agrarian age?
Yeah, as I told you, the next episode will deal with the evolution of goddesses and gods and the birth of polytheism. Polytheism means many gods. And we will see in the next episode how in the agrarian age, because agrarian age was basically a large community, lot of people, and they had to have a different concept of God. So everything nature became slowly, though this was already there in the archaic consciousness of people when they had a thunderstorm. They used to call it a thunder god. Now all that happened is some of the natural elements were given names and made into gods and goddesses. So this we will see in the next episode, and I think this has been a very good session in which we have been able to share some knowledge, and we will see in the next episode. Thank you for watching and have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.